All right, let me do a quick little sound check here. If you can hear me, just type in a Y, if you would, in the chat, and then we'll get started. Good, good. All right, thank you for that, Autumn, Nicole, Georgetta, Randall. Very good, very good. Okay, well, folks, my name is Eric, and I'll be your host tonight. Welcome to tonight's discussion on how to become a software tester. Today is Thursday, the 26th of January, 2023, shortly after 4 p.m. Pacific time. I say that because people often ask, is this a live event? Is this a live webinar? And it is live. And I guarantee you I'll be asked that in the chat at least 2 more times over the next hour if it's live. And the answer will always be, yes, it's live. All right, so here's what we're going to accomplish tonight. I'm going to give you some background on QA, quality assurance engineering. In case you're kind of confused, like, what is a QA engineer? What do they do? What is an SDET, S-D-E-T? We'll talk about what that is a little bit later. Hopefully give you teach you some things that you didn't know before you came here. So we'll go over all of that. We'll also go over what our life-changing boot camps are all about. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. I would suggest that they really are life-changing. I think you'll see that as we move along, where people are able to start new careers, not in years and years and years, but actually get started in a matter of months without having a college degree in a very high-demand, technology-focused field. So we'll get into all of that as we move along. There will also be an opportunity for you to sign up for a no-obligation free consultation with one of our counselors. What that means is at about not halfway, but I'd say about 30 minutes through our presentation tonight, there will be a box which will appear right above the chat, and you simply will click on that and type in your contact information, your email, your phone number, and a member of our team will reach out to you either this evening or tomorrow. So you'll have someone to work with one-on-one here at TestPro to see if this makes any sense for you, if you're the right fit for what it is that we do. All right. So this should last about an hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. That's all. This is, I call this the orientation. This is your orientation. You go to university and, the orientation can be days. Our orientation here is only an hour and a half. That's it. As a matter of fact, the portion that I need of that hour and a half really is about an hour and 20 minutes to go through all the things that I need to tell you about with respect to QA and so forth. The last 10 minutes really is devoted to Q&A. So the part that I need to go through is about an hour and 20 minutes. All right. So here's what I need from you. I need all of you to make a commitment to being here for the next hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes. So here's what I want you to do. Just like you did before, type a Y into the chat for yes, meaning yes, I will be here for the next hour and 20, hour and 30 minutes of this orientation. So I am going to look over here to the chat. I've got 6 screens. It's kind of a long story as to why I have so many screens in my office here, but I do. So my chat's way over here on this screen. You can't see it, but I'm just going to look over there real quickly to make sure everybody is complying. And I'm seeing a lot of yeses in there, a lot of Y's. So I appreciate you doing that. All right. So just to be clear, you are not necessarily making any type of financial commitment tonight. We're just giving you some information. However, we do have a special offer for those of you who would like to see. Let me rephrase that. For those of you who do, you like what you see and you like what you hear tonight, if that winds up being you, we do have a special offer for you guys, which I'll tell you about a little bit later how that works. Special pricing on the tuition, in other words. We also offer a money-back guarantee, which I'll get into in just a little bit. Now, what people usually want to know right here at the beginning, I shouldn't say, people usually want to know. Some people will say this. They'll type into the chat right away within the first couple of minutes. How much is this? What's the tuition? Guys, we will get to the tuition at the end. I promise you, we will get to it. If I just throw out numbers without any context, it's not going to make any sense to you. And so that would not be very logical. So I have to explain what the program is. I have to explain what is QA, what is SDET, how does that work? How do our boot camps work before I get to that? So there has to be some sort of value attached to it first. I've always said it's kind of like if you go shopping for a house and you tell your real estate agent, okay, I want you to buy me a house. I want you to find a house for me, but only if it's priced at $500,000 or less. That's it. That's all I care about. Really? That's all you care about? What about how many bedrooms, how many baths, where's it located, what neighborhood it's in, what's the size of the lot? That's what I want to know. So we will get to all of that. I will say this. This is probably the least expensive, most risk-free way to begin an in-demand career that you'll probably ever see. And I think you will see that as we move along here. Okay. So we started officially in 2018. So we have been going along now for a little over 5 years. However, prior to that, we were a big meetup group. Now, if you've ever been a part of a meetup group, now how does a meetup group work? You have like-minded individuals, of course, but you usually meet in some sort of, public location. And invariably what happens is people will show up, or maybe they're already at the venue for some other reason, but they're not really a part of your group. And so they start asking questions, just like they did. What is QA? What is this all about? And so we saw an opportunity to create a couple of boot camps, which we're going to be talking about here tonight. One is for QA, quality assurance engineers, and one is for SDET. That's SDET, software development engineer in test. We'll talk about what both of those mean in just a little bit. We do have a 91%, we're very proud of this, a 91% success rate as far as our students graduating and then getting a job offer 6 months after graduation, which is huge. You can repeat the courses for free. There is a 100% refund money-back guarantee if you do not land a job within 1 year of active searching. And we'll talk about how that works more a little bit later. All of our training is done online. We used to be on location. We're based in Southern California. We used to be on location, but COVID caused us to pivot to doing everything online. So the good thing about that is you can, if you have scheduling conflicts and you can't make the live sessions, that's okay. You can watch the recordings. And that's a tremendous way. It's such a convenient way, I would say, to get your new career started. Now, there are a few concepts that I will talk about tonight that I want to make sure you guys get, okay? Because I've noticed that I can say things 2 or 3 times, and sometimes people are still asking that same question when we're done at that hour and 20, hour and 30 minute mark. So I'm going to throw this out here right at the beginning. Okay, when it comes to being a QA, when it comes to being an SDET, many successful QA engineers are not actually college graduates, as that is not a requirement. Employers just want to know if you can do the job, which is what we train you to do. So we train you in the skill set and even provide you hands-on experience during our boot camps so that when you're asked during an interview, have you done this or that, you can respond, yes. We have a proven process which can enable you to become competent and proficient in the QA field. Got the money back guarantee, all that good stuff, which we'll talk about in depth, like I said, in just a little bit, okay? We are a fully certified program that has met the qualifications for the BPPE. That's the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary Education. This is a big deal. This isn't some random course. We are fully certified, which is a common question that people have. In addition to the certification, we are the only U.S. QA bootcamp that is recognized by the ISTQB, International Software Testing Qualifications Board. And you can Google all of this that I'm referencing tonight. Our instructors are highly qualified, having years of experience as QA engineers. So what do our students have to say about their experience with TestPro? This is probably the most important thing right here. Our average, the last time I checked, our average rating on Career Karma is 4.8 out of 5. Trustpilot is 4.6 out of 5. SwitchUp is 4.72 out of 5. Course Report is 4.7 out of 5, just to name some. And of course, this is all Googleable. Is that a word? You can look all this up yourself. All of our ratings, all of our tests, everything that our students have to say about us. Testimonials. Think about this. The testimonials, the student ratings, in particular the student ratings, what they do is they put you and TestPro on the same side of the table. Here's why I say that. We want those high ratings, but the only way we're going to continue to get those high ratings is if we live up to the promises that we've made, whether it's the comprehensive training, the ongoing support, giving you actual experience, helping you find a job, all that good stuff. So That's one thing I'm going to mention probably a few times. We actually help you with your CV. We help you in the, we prep you for the job interview, because really there are only so many questions you can be asked. And so we're going to prepare you for that, so you'll come across as, well, I shouldn't say come across, you will be confident, I believe, because you'll have the experience after going through our boot camps without even having any type of IT background in the past. All right. Now, part of my job tonight is to not only give you this information, but it's also to, whenever I can, just glance over to the chat on one of my screens to make sure all the questions are being answered. And they usually are, because I have the lovely Lupoff Garasenko joining me tonight. Everybody say hello to Lupoff. Without her, I would say she's a godsend, because without her, this presentation tonight, this discussion, if you will, on QA would probably last about 3+ hours. So having her available in the chat to help out answering questions is just it's just tremendous. Okay, now what exactly is a software tester? What will you actually be doing as a QA engineer software tester? Now, to give you kind of a preview, in about, let me see what the time is. I was saying about 30 minutes or so from now, after I get through some more information, I'm going to actually give you a couple of examples, hands-on examples of a manual as well as an automated, manual and automated examples of what you'll actually be doing as a quality assurance engineer. So, okay, so if you're still kind of confused at this point, like what exactly is a QA? What do they actually do? I'll give you a couple of examples, and I think that'll help you out a little bit here. But let me ask right at the beginning, how many of you are kind of confused about what a QA engineer or a software development engineer and test, SDET, how many of you are kind of confused about what it is that those careers entail? You're kind of confused about what a software tester is. I mean, it sounds self-explanatory, I guess they test software, right? But what does that really mean, you might be thinking? So I'm going to look over here to the chat. Is anybody kind of confused about what a software tester does or what it's all about? I'm just looking for some responses. Donna's saying me. Parviz is saying the same thing. Nicole, okay, very good, very good. Well, let me ask a very rhetorical question. In other words, you don't even have to respond to this. How many of you have ever used, let's say, Facebook or TikTok, Instagram, Uber? How many of you have ever used those apps on your phone? Everybody here has, I'm sure. I used to travel all around the world up until COVID. I was gone pretty much every week. No matter where I travel around the world, I could grab my phone and, I could call an Uber, and they were there in usually a few minutes. Unless it was a really remote location, it might take 10, 15, 20 minutes, but the vehicle would arrive. So you've used applications in the past. You know what a good application is. You know what an application that works, what it looks like. You try to use it and it's effective. It's not crashing or anything like that. So that's what you bring to the table. You have some technical knowledge, and we give you, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say you have technical knowledge per se. We're going to give you some technical knowledge. How about that? You've got the technical ability as far as using the technology, okay? But we'll give you some technical knowledge and hands-on expertise on top of what you bring to the table, having used various forms of technology. So as I said, there are two courses. The first is the manual QA course. Now, there's no coding required. And then there's the automation course, which is the SDET course, which is essentially coding adjacent. That's what we like to call it. You're not really learning to code from scratch, but what you're doing is you're reusing the same code snippets over and over again and just manipulating them a little bit. Now, that might sound complicated, but it's not, and we'll teach you everything that you need to know. And that's been our students' feedback through the years, that this is not complicated. It may have sounded that way at first, but it really isn't. I always like to use the example of, I have friends who are pilots, both commercially and they fly leisurely also. And, to me, that looks really complicated, especially when you board a plane. You look to the left, you look inside the cockpit, and you got the pilots in there. They got all these switches and gauges and lights and all that stuff, but they're sitting there, cool, calm, and collected. At least you hope they're being cool, calm, and collected, right? Would you want a pilot that's all nervous? Like, what do I do now? What is this switch all about? Should I press this button? No, you don't want that. But no, they're sitting there. They know exactly what they're doing, but it probably seemed complicated. It probably seemed a little overwhelming to them at first. but it's because of the mentorship that they had. It's because of the ongoing support that they had, the simulation that they went into, and then the actual flying, shadowing someone else. So, and that's what we do here. I don't know if anybody here can relate to me, but the way I learn best is not by someone simply telling me something, but showing me what it is that you are doing, letting me do it, and then you letting me know if I'm doing it correctly. Anybody relate to that, by the way? If you can, that's what we do here. That's what we abide by, so to speak. We treat everyone as though they have pretty much no technical knowledge whatsoever. We train them from scratch. All you have to have is the desire really to learn how to do this. Now, as far as the interview process is concerned and the job itself is concerned, our feedback has been that the feedback we received has been that it's less stressful compared to being a developer or being a manager. In other words, being a software tester is less stressful than being a developer or a manager. Now, I will say this. I mentioned the college degree earlier. You will be working alongside people in some cases who have degrees. Meanwhile, you will have taken a 9 or a 16-week boot camp, but you're only making about 10 to 15% less on average than they are as far as the guys who are developers or managers. And really, that's the whole point of a boot camp. When I was in the military, I went to what's called boot camp, right? It was 8 weeks long, and then we had the advanced training after that, which was a month. But the whole purpose of boot camp is, man, when you're trained in the military, you're trained to go to war as soon as you graduate. And that has happened to, quite a few people, as we know, through the years. So it's the same philosophy here. We train you, we give you hands-on experience on actual projects so that when you graduate, you can then say, yes, I've done this, I've done that, I've worked on this project, I worked on that project, because you will have, and it'll give you a sense of confidence. Okay. All right. Now, who can become a software tester? I always like to say you can. This is one of our graduates. His name is David. David came from construction, so he did not have a college degree. He did not have any experience whatsoever in IT. Now, if the slide is kind of confusing to you, let me explain what this is all about. Okay, so he graduated and got a job eventually at Amazon. Now, I can attest to this firsthand. I have not worked at Amazon, but from what I've been told, it's kind of a difficult interview, but he got in, and great job getting in there, David. And what eventually happened was, after David was with Amazon for a little while, he actually got an offer with another company for more money, which was pretty spectacular. So dream job working at Amazon. Then he was offered even more money to work someplace else. Again, one of our graduates, no experience in the industry, came from construction, nothing to do with IT. We have people from all walks of life. We've had people who were valets, they're parking cars. We have people that work in restaurants, white collar, blue collar, you pretty much name it. So, people always ask, or I shouldn't say always, but sometimes people ask, do I have the right background? And the question is, or really the answer is to that question, the background doesn't really matter. The background's irrelevant. Okay. What is relevant is your desire to, maybe better yourself. Employers just want to know if you can do the job. Okay. And so the key is getting that technical knowledge, mastering it, and then improving on it. So eventually David left for a higher paying job. By the way, I'm always curious about this because this used to always bug me when I used to work in an office. How many of you are tired of office politics? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody here tired of office politics? Now some companies are so competitive. And competition is great. I love competition. But some of you know what I'm talking about. Some companies are so competitive that they almost encourage their employees to work against one another as a means of getting ahead. Anybody have experience with that? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Here's why I'm asking you that. Because with QA, here's the good news. It's all about proficiency of skills and what you're able to do. You see, in QA, everything is tracked. So the data is going to speak for you. The numbers are quantifiable. So there's no need to bring someone else down in order to show that you're doing well. And that's what builds an incredible level of camaraderie amongst people in this community. Wesley, one of our graduates, he made a decision to change course into a new career during the pandemic. I would say this, the one silver lining, for lack of a better way of putting it, the one silver lining during the whole COVID thing was it made people realize that they've got to have a plan B. and that tomorrow is not a guarantee. How many of you would agree with that, by the way? A lot of companies, as we all know, were shut down during COVID. But QA actually thrived. So COVID didn't slow us down. A lot of people were already working remotely in QA. So, and COVID only increased that opportunity. So for a lot of people, their plan B is now their plan A, as they're asking, how can I work remotely? How can I create more of a true work-life balance? A lot of companies out there, they'll advertise work-life balance. Then you go to work for that company, you're like, man, this isn't really a work-life balance. I'm still working in the office 50 hours a week. So this is one of the few industries which actually delivers on a true work-life balance, as there are a lot of remote opportunities available. About 80% of our graduates have received a remote job offer, which is phenomenal. Arena, one of our graduates, she wanted more flexibility. She wanted to work remotely as well. And, she came to us in her 50s. And, another question that people have is, am I too old? I'm in my 50s. I'm in my 60s. Age does not matter. I think you'll see in a second. You might hear me say this a couple of times, that QA, it really does check all the boxes for most people. We've had people, like I said, in their 50s, in their 60s. So age doesn't matter. Now, as far as how young you can be, I would say check the labor laws where you live. One thing I always love asking during our little discussion here is, how many of you have been in a particular career for decades and you're looking for a change? So just go ahead and type it into the chat if you would, because I've noticed that lately, in the past probably 3 or 4 months, we've had a lot of people from healthcare, a lot of people from finance, a lot of people from the mortgage industry, truck drivers, had quite a few truck drivers as well. But I'm just wondering, just go ahead, if you would, type into the chat, like what industry are you coming from? Sonny, yes, healthcare, with 4 exclamation points. Cass been in the same industry for 20 years. A lot of people saying the same thing about 20 years. Eric, 11 years. Sater, a teacher. Like I said, a lot of people from education, they're looking to make that switch. Law enforcement, restaurant, financial services, translation. Okay, that's interesting. Well, good deal, guys. Good deal. Our ex-students are everywhere. And it helps us realize what the marketplace is looking for. And we have our students are all over the place. And our curriculum was actually written and created by a test lead at Disney. Our professional relationships help us to be prepared, so that way you can be prepared, whether you want to launch a career as a QA engineer, software tester, or as an SDET. And again, I know I've said this a couple of times, but I'm going to break down exactly what those 2 career paths look like in just a few minutes, okay? We have over 60 people involved in our boot camps and over 20 hands-on in the QA field instructors. So they're not just, they didn't learn stuff in theory and then they're just teaching it. No, they're actually, they're actually in the field, and then they're just, an instructor on a part-time basis. So you're in very good hands here. All right, now it's your turn. Usually at this time, this is my favorite part actually of the whole thing, because this is where I get to hear from you guys, okay? So here's what I want you to do. If you would, because I always like knowing where you guys are from. If you wouldn't mind typing to the chat your city, and then right next to it, put in the reason why you're here tonight. So you might say Detroit, concerned about retirement. Whatever. I just happen to say Detroit randomly. Whatever it is. And again, we help people from all walks of life, and they come to us for a variety of reasons. It could be make more money. I always say this, why do you want to make the money? It's not just make more money in that sense. There's got to be a real reason behind it. You might say, I love my family, therefore I need to make more money. But it's all about the family. Some people are concerned about, retiring, concerned about retirement, not being able to retire, or when they do retire, getting through retirement. Some people are concerned about, more income because of the price of eggs. Can you believe the price of eggs? It is insane. So whatever the reason is that you're here tonight, whether it's freedom, and that means different things to different people, whether it's flexibility, it could be security. As we go through this tonight, I want you to write this down. This is very important. There are 3 questions I want you to ask yourself tonight. Okay. Here's the first one. Can I see myself doing this? Now, you might not be able to respond in the affirmative at this moment, but I think when I go through a couple of examples and what it is you'll actually be doing, you're probably going to think to yourself, yeah, I could do that. Okay. But ask yourself that question. Write that down if you would. Can I see myself doing this? Here's question number 2. I want you to ask yourself tonight as we go through this. Does this solve a problem or problems? Is this a solution to a problem or problems that I have? What kind of problems? Again, it could be retirement. It could be trying to battle inflation. You need more income because of that. Getting through retirement, paying for kids' education, whatever. Taking a second vacation or maybe even taking one vacation. Studies show that the people who take more vacation, the people that vacation more often, get more time away, actually are healthier. So that's a pretty big incentive to try to take more vacations. Plus, you got this career now, this new career, which will enable you to have that free time that you don't currently have, possibly. All right. So ask yourself those 2 questions. Now, here's the third one. How will I feel about myself if I do this? I think that's important too. That might seem trivial, but I think you have to feel good about what it is that you're doing. What if the actions that you take as a software tester save the company or a client a bunch of money and a lot of time? I mean, that can make you feel pretty good about what it is that you're doing. So those 3 questions, guys. Ask yourself, can I see myself doing this? Does this solve a problem or problems? How will I feel about myself if I do this? And I'm sure you probably heard the studies or read the studies that 92% of people don't achieve their goals in life. And here we are now, January 26th. A lot of people made resolutions. Another study showed that 92% of Americans break their New Year's resolutions. So 2 studies, different universities, Harvard and the University of Scranton, show that 92% of Americans break their New Year's resolutions and they don't achieve their goals. Only 8% of the population is doing what they want to do as far as hitting their goals are concerned, and not breaking their New Year's resolutions. Most people break their New Year's resolution by January 15th. Keep that in mind. You guys are the 8%, though. I am certain of that, and that's why you're here tonight. So, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to give you some more information here about the boot camps as far as the times, the dates. So you might want to jot this down also. But Lupoff will be putting this into the chat, I'm sure, a little bit later. But just so you know, right here at the beginning, the manual QA course, the days on that are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Then Saturday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And we have another class that's coming up in March. That's going to be on March 11th. Yes, Saturday, March the 11th. We do these classes, the boot camps, late in the day and on Saturday morning. So you don't have to quit your job. But the good thing is, if you can't make even those classes, those times, that's okay, because we record all the boot camps. You can watch them at your convenience. All right. By the way, thanks for playing along and helping me out there, as far as your feedback goes. And I don't like to just, lecture. I like it when you guys play along and kind of, answer questions and so forth. It helps make it go by a lot quicker. And I think you retain the information better also. Okay. So why technology? I would say some of the fastest growing occupations are in IT. They really are. Guys, I mean, think about it. Have you ever lost your phone or thought you lost your phone and your life just flashed, before your eyes? I mean, our entire lives, our entire world is in our phone nowadays. Technology has just completely taken over. It seems like it's been this way now for years, where you have to have some sort of advanced degree just to work on your car because of all the chips and so forth that are in your car, the computers that run the automobiles nowadays. So technology is here. It's here to stay, and it's only going to get even more and more technology laden in our society. The median wage in technology is close to $50 an hour. 40 an hour puts you on pace for just over $80,000 a year. Now, when you see where it says max wage $150, that's not saying, I'm not suggesting that, you graduate and then boom, graduate from our boot camp and you're going to be making $150 an hour. That's including also developers and people who are project managers, guys like that. There are jobs all over the country. Don't do it now, but a little bit later when we're done, just go to Indeed.com and check for your local area. Check, type in QA or SDET, and you'll see the number of opportunities that are available wherever you might live. A lot of companies do offer nowadays some pretty cool work environments. Remote is still available big time. As I was mentioning earlier, about 80% of our graduates have received a remote job offer. So think about that. I mean, remote is huge because I've got kids. I don't know if anybody else here has as many kids as me. I have 4 kids. I mean, I love my children a lot, but it's great to not have to be in an office all the time, because now you can attend their functions and things like that. Maybe your kids are already grown. Maybe you've got grandkids at this point. Hey, you can spend more time with the grandkids. I mean, they're only that age once, and you're able to do that, I would argue, a lot more if you have the flexibility of either, working remotely or being in the office. Now, this picture might seem out of place. I'm just going to spend about 1 minute on this, but there's a reason why I'm sharing this with you, okay? So for a lot of you, if you work in an office in particular, you had to clock in this morning. If you clock in 5 minutes too early or 5 minutes too late, it's a problem. When you take lunch, if you're lucky, you get 45 minutes, maybe an hour. If you're not so lucky, maybe you're eating at your desk, or you got 15, 30 minutes. That's about it. Now, imagine, let's say you did have kids, okay? And you go for lunch, you pick up your kids from school, you take them home, you make sure they're fed, they're safe, they're taken care of. And then about an hour or so later, but an hour and a half or so after you left the office, now you're finally back to the office. After going through all of that, you left for an hour and a half, but you're not concerned about getting fired. Why? Because you've already spoken with the company, and they know that you have to do this in order to be a productive, fulfilled employee. Now, here's what I want you to do. Try to attach a dollar amount to that. You can't do it. It's priceless. Being able to take care of your family, not only financially, but in other ways, it really is priceless. So a company-wide Nerf war, here's my point, as silly as it sounds, is something that's definitely a possibility. To have an entire company partake in an all-day event and not have to worry about being back at your desk is tremendous and really symbolic of this entire industry. Now, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not saying that, how can I put this? Don't get the wrong idea. People in tech, work very hard. I mean, but they play just as hard also. Let's just put it that way, okay? So before we go any further, because I am at the, let's see, it's 4:33 Pacific time. Before we go any further, here's what I want you guys to do. I want to pause for a few seconds and give everyone an opportunity to have a no obligation consult with one of our counselors. So here's how you're going to do that. There is a button just above the chat where you click on the chat and you type in your email address, your phone number, and then that'll enable one of our counselors to get a hold of you in the next, either tonight or somewhere within the next 24 hours. That way, in case you think of something that we didn't go over tonight, but you're like, maybe it's tomorrow morning, you're like, well, I forgot about something. I wish I had asked this question. You'll have someone to work with one-on-one here at TestPro. So I just want to take a few seconds, click on, it's no obligation, just click on the chat and type in your email, your phone number, and then we'll get back with you. Somebody will actually be assigned to you, a counselor to work with you one-on-one to see if it makes any sense to you. For some of you, it's not. I mean, I was reading a couple of comments there in the chat. For a couple of you guys, this isn't going to make any sense for you to do this. It won't make any sense to be involved with TestPro, but for a lot of you, it might. And so go ahead and type in the information so somebody can reach out to you and have that conversation. No obligation. Okay. So some of the biggest companies in the world, this is dovetailing what I was talking about earlier, the most technically heavy companies in the world, Apple, Google, for example, no longer require even their developers to have a college degree. They don't care if you know all about, I always like to say, Elizabethan poetry and astronomy, geography. No one cares about that. All they want to know is, can you do the job they're going to hire you to do? Can you sit there and test the software? So that's what they're concerned with. There's no formal education requirements for testers. The key is the technical information. That's what we train you to do. Now, as I said earlier, you can go to, when we're wrapped up here, go to Indeed or Glassdoor, whatever the case may be. Look to see the QA opportunities that are available, around where you live. Because right now there are about 250,000 open QA positions in the U.S. And now some of these will advertise. I will let you know that some of the companies will advertise that they require a college. I shouldn't say require. They will mention college degree. Many times what they're doing is they're copying and pasting a template. So I would say just pretty much disregard that, especially if it says in parentheses preferred. What they're mainly concerned about is the technical expertise, which we teach you. Okay. Remember, over 91% of our graduates are working in QA, and many do not have a college degree, and they come from all walks of life. So I want to explain the career path. There are 4 different levels that you can be focused on, and TestPro prepares you for 2 of them. So we prepare you for level 2 and level 4, but let's go through the other ones as well, just to make sure you have like a basic understanding of them. Okay. So level 1 QA analyst. What exactly is a QA analyst? Well, this is someone who is not necessarily tech savvy. They may already be working for a company, got promoted into this position because of their familiarity with the company or the product itself. But we don't prepare you for that one. That's more of like an entry level type position. We prepare you more for this one, the level 2 QA engineer. Now, as a quality assurance engineer, you could be competing against people who have a few years experience. But what we're going to learn, what you're going to learn in just a few months, really, 9 to 16 weeks, depending on which boot camp you wind up going into, can take people easily 3 to 5 years of on-the-job experience. So you'll learn in 9 to 16 weeks, which will take them 3 to 5 years. Remember, you're going to be tested on the knowledge, and we give you that technical knowledge. QA automation level 3, we don't really prepare you for that one. We prepare you for the one that's higher than that even. That's the level 4, the SDET. Okay, the software developer engineer in test. This is an automation role, of course, and it's our second boot camp. Now, this is a much more technically savvy position. I get this question a lot. Can I start with QA and then go into SDET? The answer is yes. Can I go straight into SDET? And the answer is yes also. So then the question might be, well, how will I know which direction I should go? Well, I always like to respond to that this way. If you struggle with very simple technology, then you might want to go the QA route, the QA engineer route. If you have difficulty, turning on your computer, then you might want to go the QA route. I always say, if you've got a computer problem, just call an 8-year-old, and the 8-year-old will probably help us out, right? If you do have more technical expertise, more knowledge in technology, then you might go straight into SDET. Now, how would you qualify that? Well, let's say that you've been working with computers, maybe at a job where past job or current job where you had like an administrative type role and you were creating spreadsheets or managing payroll. Then you might have a foundation of technical knowledge that would support you to go right into SDET if that's what you want to do. But you know yourself, how confident you are with your current skills. I would just encourage you to, challenge yourself and step outside of your comfort zone. But yeah, have a discussion. That's why you want to have a discussion with one of our counselors, because they can help guide you in the right direction on which one might make more sense for you, the QA engineer path or the SDET path. So the QA engineer, now this is where we're located, Southern California. This is going to be different from where you live, perhaps. A lot of it has to do with cost of living, taxes, things like that. But QA engineer in Southern California, the average is just over $80,000 a year. And that's what we prepared you for, that software tester, QA engineer. The SDET automation is averaging over 100,000 a year, 120,000+ a year. Again, you're tested on the knowledge. That's what we prepare you for. So you might notice the salaries are high, but commensurate with, again, where you live. So keep in mind, cost of living, like I said, taxes and so forth. That's why when we're done, check out the job sites and get an idea for what the salaries are where you're located. I will say this, though. There is the potential to land a job with a company that might not be where you're located. You don't live where they're based, perhaps, but there is the potential of getting what people would get as far as the salary goes if they did actually live where the company's based, because you're working remotely. So that's exciting. That's always a possibility. So, keep those questions coming. I appreciate Loopoff helping out here. So to recap, we have 2 boot camps: the QA Engineer Boot Camp, which is 9 weeks long, and that positions you. We'll just call it this: the 60 to 90,000 a year range. And then we have the SDET Boot Camp, which is 16 weeks, and that positions you more for a salary somewhere between that. I'd say more like 100 to 200 plus. Here, like I said, in Southern California, it's more in that averages 120 getting started out. People ask if these skills translate internationally, and the answer is yes. But I'd recommend that you go the SDET route if you're thinking about working abroad. So if you're like, I'm going to go work in, I don't know, Western Europe, I want to go South America, whatever the case may be, then you might want to consider the SDET, because those skills that you'll learn there are more transferable worldwide. All right. Okay, what do software testers do? Here are the 3 main things. They look for defects. They work on test cases and automation. So let's go through all of these. All right. Here's the first one. Let's start with bugs and defects. Now, remember from earlier, we talked about how important a software tester's role in a company is, because you are charged with making sure that the software functions properly and is free of defects. If you're the company, you don't want to launch a flawed product and get killed with bad reviews. I mean, think of all the money it would cost the company and all the time it would cost them, which is even more important. So that's where you come in. You come in to prevent that. So what is a bug? What is a defect? It is essentially any flaw, no matter how minor, or any incorrect thing in a software program. So it can be a typo. It can be the wrong color on the website. It can be something really big to where when it's used, it actually crashes. The application does. It can be anywhere in that range. So what QA software testers do is find those problems, find those errors before the customers do. Does that make sense? I'm going to pause for a second, just ask guys in the chat. Does that make sense to you? Just what a software tester does in a big picture sense, like a 30,000 foot view. Does that make sense? You're looking for trying to find any flaw in the program, any flaw in the system. You're acting like you are the customer. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Okay. Now, you probably will ask yourself, well, how will I know what color the web page is supposed to be? Or how will I know of this or that? And that's where the requirements come into play. Okay. So we look at the requirements. The requirements are given to us, meaning to the not only the software testers, but also to the developers. So the developers, here's what they do. They're going to write code based on those requirements. And then QA is going to make sure that all those requirements were met and make sure that there aren't any problems with what the developers did. Now, I've gotten this question before. It's a logical question, and I'll admit that. Why don't the developers just test their own code and verify their own stuff? But that's like proofreading your own work. How many of you, when you were in school, you turned in a paper and you thought, oh man, I aced this test. I got 100 on it. And it gets returned to you the next day with a bunch of red ink on it. And you're like, oh man, all these careless mistakes, but you didn't see it. You thought it was everything was perfect. So a lot of times we're not going to notice something that we've done incorrectly. And that's where QA comes into play. So it's kind of like this, think about if you're an author, you're writing a book, what do you have to do? You send it into your editor, and they're like another set of eyes, making sure that the syntax is correct, that that flows properly, all that good stuff. So you're kind of like this second set of eyes. A company that's putting millions and millions and millions of dollars into a project, they are not going to trust the developers 100%. I mean, they hired the developers, yes, but they want to make sure that everything was done correctly. That's where the software testers come into play to make sure that everything was done correctly. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys a couple of examples of what a software tester does, what you yourself might be doing at some point. So I'm going to pull up an application that we use pretty often called humans.net in just a few minutes. And how many of you have ever done this? I'm sure you have. I mean, a million times like me, or maybe not as many times as me. But how many of you have ever forgotten your password? Rhetorical question, I know. Maybe you're traveling and you're using a computer at the hotel or something, and your passwords aren't saved on that browser. So you're like, oh man, I forgot my password. Everybody's done it. So let's go through an example of how this works. Okay, this is what you would be doing as a software tester. Okay, so let's say you forgot your password, and you click on the login page. When you enter your email, which I'm going to do in just a minute for you, and you click continue, it says the user should be redirected to the email verification page with the text. I want you to keep this in mind, okay? We have just sent you an email with your code to, and the email I'm going to use is called existing@gmail.com, very generic, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind. We have just sent you an email with your code to existing@gmail.com. All right. So we know functionally what's supposed to happen here. But again, what's important is to pay attention to the text that the business wants displayed in the flow. All right. We have just sent you an email with your code to existing@gmail.com. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to drag this over. And let me do this. Okay, so you guys now see this web page here. I'm going to go in here to login. All right. And then go over here to forgot your password, something that we've all done. I do every week, it seems like. I'm going to type in existing@gmail.com. All right, existing@gmail.com. And I'm going to click continue. All right. What does this say? I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it says, we sent an email with your 4-digit code to existing@gmail.com. All right. Pop quiz. Is that what the requirement stated? Let's see who was paying attention and who wasn't. All right. So did the requirement indicate that what the developer was supposed to do was create the functionality which says we send an email with your 4-digit code to existing@gmail.com. Let me just go over here to my other screen. I see yeses and I see no's, kind of a mixed bag, but I would say more no's than anything. Okay, let me do this. Hold on one second. And let's come back over here. All right. What was it supposed to say? It was supposed to say, we have just sent you an email with your code to existing@gmail.com. So that whole 4-digit thing, that's extra. So what does that mean? You might say, well, that's kind of minor, isn't it? Who cares about that? No. It doesn't matter how minor it is. That was not what was in the requirement. That's not what the client wanted. So the developer made an error there. So what does that mean? Do we have to correct the error? The answer is, here's the good news. No, we don't have to do that. All we do is simply not fix it, but write up a bug report. So what you're seeing right here is a screenshot from a very common bug reporting tool called Jira. If you're not familiar with Jira, don't worry about it. You will become very familiar with it as you go through the bootcamp, okay? So this is an example of writing up that bug that we put in some steps to reproduce. And we navigate to the password reset right over here. We entered an existing email. We did existing@gmail.com. We click continue. And then it was supposed to say, we have just sent you an email with your code to whatever email. And instead it says, we sent an email with your 4-digit code to existing@gmail.com. So guys, it could be something as simple as that, where it was just the wrong text on the page. Won't always be as simple as that, but that's just one example of something that you guys would actually be doing. So the second area that we focus on are test cases. Test cases, what are they? Those are the actual actions that we're going to execute to test a new piece of software. So depending on how complicated that software is, test cases might be really simple and straightforward, a few steps. Like if the whole thing was just that it forgot your password flow, then test case is pretty simple. But maybe it might be a bigger project with a lot of things. So we need to document the different things. So test case, this serves two purposes. First, it helps you prepare for how you're going to test stop something and make sure you're ready, prepared, and planned. And secondly, afterwards, it serves as a verification or as a record of what was done and how you did test the software. So the test cases clarify what need to be done, and they become part of what are called test suites. So individual tests can build up into bigger test suites for those bigger projects. Another way of looking at this is, if you ever bought a certified pre-owned car, okay, rather than just a regular pre-owned car, what if it's certified? What does that mean? Well, the dealership has to go through they have to go through a checklist, don't they? They have to make sure it meets certain qualifications in order to refer to it as certified pre-owned. Okay. So don't get the wrong idea. You will never be in the dark. You will always have access to the requirements. They'll be given to you. The requirements will be your checklist. You will know exactly what to search for. You will know exactly what to test when you are testing the software. Just like the car dealership, what do? They check the lights out. They check the engine out. They make sure everything's working before it's actually certified pre-owned. You'll be doing something very, very similar. Okay. All right. So this is an example again of this is another example of Jira and how we write up a test case. So we write the document to say users should be prompted to verify email. That's what we're testing. Maybe we add a description to get a little bit more into that if we need to. Otherwise, it's about the navigation steps of how to replicate. You go here, you click on this, you go here, enter an email address, click the continue button, and then you have an expected result where users should be prompted to verify the email. So we get the results, and when you don't meet those expected results, that's when the test case fails. Now, here's the problem with test cases. As they grow, as your application grows and gets bigger and gets older, as a tester, you got to redo those test cases over and over again. You got to repeat the tests, and you need to work through them and test everything as a way of making sure the application still works well, that it does what it's supposed to do. And that can become, as I'm sure you probably agree with this, it can become very tedious because you're doing things that probably work. They should work. You're not expecting to find any problem. They worked the last 10 times they were done. It becomes rather repetitive. And that's where test automation comes into play. So the tasks which are repetitive or easy to do, as opposed to doing them manually dozens and dozens of times, can now be done through automation. So with automation, we can now focus on the things which require your full attention while having those more repetitive tasks that really can be, like I said, very tedious. They can be done in the background automatically. And that's where SDET comes into play. Again, software development, engineer, and test. All right. So those things, again, which are repetitive, easy to do, where you don't have to actually be looking at the screen yourself. We know what the text in this case is supposed to be. So we can easily make the system say, as you're seeing on your screen here, go do this and look for this text. And if it's not this text, then it'll fail. So here's the bottom line. Here's what I want to do. I want to do the same exact thing we just did a moment ago, where we forgot our password. Okay, we were pretending that we were the customer. That's what that's where a software tester do. That software tester does. That's what a QA engineer does. So I'm going to do the same exact thing that I just did a moment ago, but do it in an automated type fashion. Okay, so check this out. Let me pull this up. All right. So this is an example of writing a test script in test automation. Now, when we're writing our scripts, we have to borrow from whatever we're testing. So we'll copy the URL. We'll copy our requirements so that we get that right. So we got the URL, and we're going to copy the requirements. We go through the flow manually while we write our script. And this, again, this is just a repeat of what I did manually earlier. So there's the email I put in, existing@gmail.com, that you've got to press the enter button. And here's where we get to our expected results. So we expect that the text is And let's borrow it straight out of the requirements. Let's not take it from the web page, because we know from the manual test, the web page is actually wrong. So there's the requirements. So we're going to copy out of the requirements to make sure we get it right. And let me just check. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to kick it off here. And right now, what it's doing is it's going to open up a browser. There it goes. It does it on its own. I'm not really typing or really doing anything at this point. It's automated. And this is where that comes from. And you can see the test. That quickly it failed. What's in green was what was expected. And then what was in red is what actually occurred. So the test failed. Why? Because the text was wrong. Okay. So all we really did there was the same thing a different way. So we did it manually, and then we did it automated. So you will learn how to automate things that are more tedious, so you can put your attention elsewhere. And it's a tremendous time saving. So what do you need to get a job? We've discussed several times already that sometimes you'll see in the job description, college degree. We address that. What potential employers really care the most about is, can you do the job? Do you have the technical knowledge? And they want to know what tools and techniques you've used. We're going to make sure that we set you up with real tools in a real tech environment, with real projects like we just went over with humans there, humans.net. That's a real project that we actually test against. And so then, since you're new to this, we're here to support you. We're going to teach you. We're going to answer all your questions, hold your hand along the way. At the end of the boot camp, we're going to focus on the interview prep to make sure that you know how to answer questions correctly, intelligently, confidently, all that good stuff. These are just some of the tools that you'll learn about and use. There are a whole lot more than this, guys. This is just some of them. We were talking about Jira earlier. That's very, very common. It's a kind of a project management tool. Confluence. If you haven't heard of that, don't worry about it. That's okay. It's used for sharing data and tracking. It's a good place for requirements. It's a good place for testing notes. Zephyr is the plugin that we use to do some of the test case management. Slack, some of you guys, maybe many of you have used Slack in the past, or Microsoft Teams. I mean, Slack is just a very common, communication tool, communication messaging tool in this industry. And there are a whole lot more. There's Browser Stack, Charles Proxy, on and on and on. And guys, don't worry if you're not familiar with any of this. I'm going to show you what's included in the bootcamp in just a second on the next slide. As you look at as you look at the highlights and what's included in the boot camps, invariably, some of you or a lot of you might say, well, this doesn't sound familiar to me at all. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm confused. Well, guess what? You're supposed to be confused. Whenever you hear something for the first time, you're going to be confused. Remember I talked about the pilots earlier. They were confused also when they started looking at all these switches, gauges, and lights and so forth. When you learned algebra or trigonometry or calculus for the first time, you were probably a little bit confused, or physics, but the more you did it, the more it was like, okay, now it's sinking in. And it's really the same concept here. As far as the projects are concerned that you like to be working on, humans, I just mentioned to you a moment ago, there's also, there's Cole, which is a music streaming application, and Wire, which is a mobile app. So we have these three apps that we use throughout the boot camp as part of the curriculum, so that you return to different sections of them and get to test different features. And as you're learning more about quality assurance, you'll continue to use these same projects over and over again. So that way, when you go to a job interview, you can say, yes, I have worked on those projects. I've worked on those applications, because now you will have the actual experience. Guys, be sure to click on that button, type in your email address, your phone number, so a member of our team can reach out to you tonight or tomorrow. It's no obligation. Don't worry about that. It's just to see if you're the right fit for what it is that we do, because you might not be. And we want to make sure of that. And it's hard to determine in a little, 1 hour and 20-minute presentation here, webinar. So that's where you want to talk one-on-one with one of our counselors and ask them questions more directly. And you might think of something tomorrow that you didn't think of tonight. So be sure to click on that link. Take it to that next step. Why? I mean, I feel like you accomplished something tonight, as opposed to this, listening to this for an hour, 20, hour and 30 minutes. Make that connection with one of our counselors so you can go a little bit more in depth than what I'm able to give you in just our short amount of time here together tonight. Okay. So here are some highlights of the QA engineer curriculum, things that we will teach you that also come up in job descriptions. Well, STLC, that's the software development lifecycle, software test lifecycle. You'll get experience with this pretty much every day, and that's part of the curriculum. We'll teach you how to do documentation, how to find documentation, how to make your own, teach you many different types of testing, how builds happen, API testing. Even in the QA engineer course, we do start getting into test automation a little bit, so you get kind of a taste of that, a basic understanding. If you want me to show this again at the end, just let me know, and I'll, when we're done, and I'll show you this slide one more time. Here's the SDET, the highlights here to the SDET. Again, the SDET, it's a little bit more high level, more technical. So of course we get into Java, Selenium WebDriver. How do you determine XPaths, locators, and CSS, cascading style sheets? That's just a language for documents created with HTML. So you can automate against these locators. We get into pipelines, so you can use for builds, even Docker. Now, again, don't worry if you're like, you're talking Greek to me, man. Don't worry about that. Everybody says the same thing. If you have no background in this, which you don't have to have, I mean, most of our graduates do not have a background in IT. This was foreign to them all at first as well. But the key is, we'll teach you all this. We'll hold your hand, not just teach you, but actually have you do these things, and then let you know if you're doing it correctly. We talked about the testimonials earlier. So we have a lot of credibility out there. Our average is 4.7 out of 5. The last time I checked, amongst all of the review sites. So again, it's in our best interest to maintain those high ratings, and we're only going to do that if we live up to the promises that we made to you. So just a quick reminder about all the things we talked about. We have the money back guarantee. I'll go over the tuition in about 3 minutes from now, and then we're going to wrap up. We have the tools. You've got the different projects to give you actual experience. You got the interview prep. You've got the job search assistance, everything you need to get your career started. Not in years, but in months. Time is our most valuable commodity. Everybody says that. It's cliched. But think about this for a second. Can you replace money? You lose money. Can you replace it? Yes. Can you replace time? No. So we're not talking about going to college for 4 years, 4 more years, or maybe going to graduate school on top of that, 4 years, 8 years. We're not talking about that. We're talking about months getting your new career, your new life started. A lot of you are already aware of that, especially if you have kids in school like I do. And nowadays, you've got college tuition at $10,000 a year. That's if you're in-state public university. What if you're out-of-state public university? It could be $30,000 a year, even more than that. So it could cost you conceivably $40,000+ or a lot more than that just for a 4-year degree at a public university. And private universities, they're even more than that. I have family that went to Yale and the Brown and I guess you could call it the Harvard of the South, Duke. But they spent, well, not quite as much as today, but nowadays, I should say, you're talking $30,000, $40,000, $50,000+ a year. So imagine having $100,000, $200,000 a year in student loan debt. Now, of course, there are grants, there are scholarships. I get that. But we have $1.8 trillion in student loan debt, I guess, for a reason. There's a lot of student loan debt out there. And what are you actually getting for that? Do they offer any type of assistance with your job search? Can you retake the courses for free? And the average boot camp is over $13,000. Ours is not, by the way, as of right now. So we have the live sessions. They're always offered, but you don't have to attend a live session. You can, as I mentioned, watch the recordings if you can't attend live. Before I get to the tuition, we do offer installments. I'm going to make sure everybody's clear on that before I even get to that. Yes, we do offer installments. Talk to your counselor about that. I don't know exactly how it works. That's not what I do, but I do know they've worked miracles with people. People have thought, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it. And then they wound up being able to do it because we will help you out. All you're really trying to accomplish tonight is, finding out if this makes any sense for you. For some of you, it's not going to make sense. I get that. But But for a lot of you, it might. And if it does, that's where you want to have that conversation with one of our counselors. Don't let the money be an issue, because we will work with people no matter what your situation is. Okay. So fill out the form so we can contact you, have a conversation, and eventually the certificate could be yours, which you'll receive upon graduation, serving as your official documentation of course completion. So our tuition is extremely low as it is, but you're not even going to be paying this amount. Okay, so the QA program is 9 weeks plus a 4 weeks internship. The SDET program is 16 weeks and 4 weeks of practice. Now, we're going to go through a tuition increase soon. We're not there yet, but we're going to go through a tuition increase soon by clicking on the button and filling out the form, which only take you 30 seconds to do it. That'll serve as like a timestamp that you attended our session tonight, because you're not going to be paying this. It's kind of like if you go to a BJ's or a Costco or something like that, they can offer, paper towels in bulk and you pay less, the unit price is a lot less. So we typically get cumulatively anywhere from 200 to 400 people whenever I do a session like this. So we can offer the same courses, the same boot camps at substantial discounts. And I want you to keep something in mind. The SDET, this is big, guys. The SDET, you get both of them for this price. Let me make sure you understand that. If you go for the SDET, you don't have to. I'm just saying, if you did, you get both of them. You get the QA engineer and the SDET for only $57.49. That's it. So rather than $38.60, QA engineer $32.16, SDET, you get both of them for $57.49. That's huge. If you feel this, again, if you feel that this is something that you could do, or at least you're interested in learning more about to see if you could do this, if this solves a problem or problems, and if you could feel good about what it is that you're doing, fill out the form, talk to one of our counselors, have that conversation, and again, to see if this makes any kind of sense for you. Now, we do offer a money-back guarantee. Again, you're starting your new career, your new life in months, not years. This is months. So we cannot guarantee you a job placement due to California state law, but we will offer you a full refund if you don't land a job within 1 year of active searching. Now, what does active searching mean? That it will be clearly spelled out for you in the agreement. Okay. You can repeat the course for free on top of that. So we check every box. So QA, the career, checks all the boxes for a lot of people. And then we, as an organization, as a company that will train you, we check a lot of boxes too. We check all of them as well. This is all we do, guys. We don't, I always like to say, we don't do SDET, QA engineer, and then train people how to be bartenders or truck drivers. Okay, that's not what we do here. All we do is QA engineer and SDET. That's it. Now, for those of you who are like, you know what? I've heard enough. I've seen enough. I want to do this. Maybe it might take me a few hours, but I'm going to do it. If that's you, upon checkout, I want you to use a special coupon. Let's take my first name there, Eric, ERIC, and then use and then put 0126. That's tonight's date. After that, so Eric 0126, use that at checkout and receive an additional $100 off. So what does that mean? That means the QA engineer course becomes $31.16. SDET with the QA, both of them becomes $56.49. And seriously, how many careers can you start for just over $5,000 or $3,000? It's virtually impossible. I mean, to start a McDonald's franchise, go research that when you get a chance. You need like $1 million in the bank. It's a lot of money. I know that. I had a friend who owned a bunch of Burger Kings back in the day, back in the 90s. He owned like 13 of them. And he did really well for himself. But man, the dollar outlay that he had to put up, was even a Subway, to open up a Subway, you have to have all kinds of money. So my point is, there aren't too many careers out there where you can get started, where you have flexibility to work remotely, and you take charge of your life, and you're starting it with either $3,000 or $5,000. It's unheard of, really. So use that coupon Eric 0126 at checkout for you guys who are like, you know what, I want to move forward. I've heard enough. I've seen enough. I'm ready to do this. If you are on the fence, maybe that'll help you out. Maybe that'll give you like that little kick that you need, that little nudge that you need to save the extra money. Okay, so I would write that down. You have 24 hours to use that, Eric0126. And again, that would drop this down to 3116 and this down to 5649. All right. We do offer installments. We do offer payment plans. Talk to your counselor about that. They'll give you a lot more detail than what I can give you. All right. So let me just look in the chat here. I know we had a couple of wise guys. That usually happens. We've had some people log in who are kind of trolling and they work for other companies. So they'll type some stuff in there, some nonsense, but whatever. I always say, if you have nothing better to do with your life than to tune into this, I feel bad for you. And I mean, just to be a troll, you know what I mean? Just to be silly. But the good thing is 99.9% of you guys are here because you're serious. You want to change in life and you're ready to take control of your life, so to speak, with an in-demand career that doesn't require, a 4-year degree. It doesn't require tons, any experience really, any type of background in IT, which is pretty awesome. All right. I'm just checking out the chat here. So again, I got 6 screens. I used to be in the financial industry, so I'm used to having a lot of screens. So here in my office, I got all these screens set up for this presentation tonight. So I have to look over here. All right. Well, guys, if you were here at the beginning, I mentioned to you that I need 1 hour and 20 minutes to get through my part. And I was through it in about 1 hour and 9 minutes. So a little bit early. Oh, Henry said you got 3 monitors. Okay, so you know where I'm coming from. Okay, so as far as the pricing goes, it's the special pricing here where you use that code. It expires. The code, I have no control over the code, unfortunately. It expires in 24 hours. So for you guys who are like, you know what, I'm pretty sure I want to do this, or I know I want to do this, or I'm on the edge. Maybe I need that little nudge to get me over the edge to actually do it. Take advantage of the extra $100 off. That brings the price down, like I said, to $31.16 here, and the SDET as well as QA down to $56.49. I mean, it's almost like we're giving it away, along with a money back guarantee, and you can repeat the course for free. And our ratings online, you can see them yourself, average out to 4.7 out of 5 over the last 5 years. I'm like, what more do you want? And we help you land the job. I mean, we help you with your CV. We help you in the job interview process. We help you with all of that. We leave no stone unturned. So this is not one of those deals where it's like, okay, we're going to give you some information and, say, okay, see you later. Hope it works out for you. No, I mean, we're here to hold your hand along the way, prepare you for that interview. Now, how far you go in the company, that's up to you. But we're so confident that if you don't find a job within 12 months of graduation, we give you a money back guarantee. Now, again, actively searching, that it's not onerous. Don't worry about that. It's like, what do I have to apply to like 20 places a day or something like that? No. But it's also not, being a graduate and then only applying to one job in a year and saying, well, this didn't work. Well, that's not actively searching either. So again, it'll be spelled out for you. It's achievable. It's easily achievable. But talk to your counselor about that. They'll explain what that actually means, what that looks like. All right. Oh, is the chair kind of disappearing? I know what you mean. Snow. Yep, fully certified. Let me take it back here. I know not everybody can be here on time. Life gets in the way and so forth. But yeah, we're fully certified by the BPPE. Oh, Henry, that's so nice of you to say. I appreciate that. Yeah, information overload. Yeah. Anthony says, you're an ex-robot programmer. Okay, that's great. I have a first cousin who works for NASA. She's worked there for, man, I think 20 years or something like that. Worked on some pretty big projects also. Yeah, Deidre, all you have to do is click on that button, fill out the form, talk to one of our counselors, and they'll fill you in on all the additional information. You've got the coupon code, the promo code, save some extra money. That's very nice of you. Yeah, the class times, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, and then Saturday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. The next cohort begins on March the 11th, which is a Saturday. And again, we do it at those times so people don't have to quit their job. But if there is still a conflict, we record it so you can watch it at your convenience. So don't worry if you're like, oh, I can't make Saturday mornings. That's okay. We record it. We have homework checkers. I mean, we have people who are on staff to help you with your homework, to make sure that you're keeping up. Because, some things can be online, but not everybody learns at the same pace. So that's why we have people to help you out. Okay, maybe you're not learning at the same pace as someone else who is also trying to learn by watching the recordings because they can't make the live sessions either. So we're not, again, I said it earlier, but we don't leave any stone unturned. We really don't. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to leave Loop off here to address the questions, and looks like a lot of the questions have already been addressed. But the chat will stay open. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. You guys have been great. You really have. Like I said, we always get a couple of trolls. Not always. We get a couple occasionally that kind of, some silly guys. But we appreciate you playing along and answering questions and participating. And I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something tonight that maybe you didn't know before you got here. Maybe have some more clarity on what exactly a software tester is, what exactly it is that they do, and some more clarity on what it is that we do and how we do care about our students. We have those high ratings for a reason. It's because, we're here to, we live up to the promises that we make. We don't just say, okay, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. Everything we say, it's in writing. And, if we say it's a money back guarantee, it's a money back guarantee. If we say you can repeat the courses for free, you can repeat the courses for free. Prepare you for your job interview. We do all that. All right. Well, guys, that's all I've got for you. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to leave Loop off here to address the rest of the questions. The chat will remain open, but I sincerely wish you the best. And maybe at some point later this year, one of you that's in attendance will, maybe I'll be interviewing you for one of our sessions here. We'll do like a live interview. But take care, and I will talk to you later.